Good evening. My name is Kofi Annan, General Secretary of the United Nations. Today, July 12, 2006, Hezbollah launched Operation True Promise, an assault on Israel and the IDF soldiers patrolling the current border between northern Israel and Lebanon. The attack, initially resulting in the death of 8 Israeli soldiers, continues to escalate in these following hours. I cannot begin to express the urgency in which we are working to resolve the matter, as well as the importance of this conflict to not only the region, but the entire world. The Lebanon-located terrorist organization Hezbollah is continuing their attacks with rocket assaults on northern Israeli cities, as well as IDF military bases. These attacks have prompted the Israeli military, the IDF, to launch a counter-operation, which they're now calling Operation Change Direction. The actions of the Israeli Defense Force include a naval and air blockade of Hezbollah's base of operation, Lebanon, as well as planned airstrikes and a planned ground incursion into Lebanon. To better understand the event and the attitude taken by myself and many of my colleagues here at the United Nations, we must take a look into the past of Israeli and Lebanese relations, as well as many declarations and decisions made by us here at the UN. Lack of a strong government in Lebanon has rendered the southern portion of the nation almost entirely independent. This lack of governance has created a breeding ground for many anti-Israeli terrorist organizations, namely the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, made Lebanon their home many years ago, resulting in a PLO attack on 2 Israeli civilian buses. These attacks prompted the IDF to launch Operation Litani, an attempt to expel the PLO from Lebanon, south of the Litani River. Responding to this operation, us here at the UN initiated and brokered a deal that would include both an Israeli withdrawal from Lebanon, as well as the establishment of the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, referred to as the UNIFIL. However, despite the actions taken by us here at the UN, in step with the UNIFIL and Lebanese government, terrorist activity has continued to flourish in southern Lebanon, which we saw culminate in the eventual attempted assassination of the Israeli ambassador to the United Kingdom a few years ago. These actions resulted in Operation Peace for Galilee, where again Israel would mount a ground incursion into Lebanon. The results of this incursion would be much more effective in expelling the PLO, with the eventual capture of Yasser Arafat, as well as the establishment of a buffer zone in between Lebanon and Israel, where currently IDF soldiers have been stationed for many years. As we've seen, the Iranian Revolution continues to inspire and fund terrorist organizations both inside the Middle East and all around the world. One of these organizations, Hezbollah, found a new home in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah has continued to harass Israel at any and all given opportunities, resulting in 2 major military incursions already undertaken by the IDF, Operation Grapes for Wrath and Accountability. Eventually, 6 years ago in 2000, Israel withdrew from Lebanon on account of our declaration here at the UN, leaving Hezbollah to quickly fill the vacuum of power left in the wake of departure. Despite the calls from all of us here at the UN, as well as the Israeli government, for the Lebanese government to install a stable government in control of southern Lebanon, Hezbollah's Syrian influence has further hindered our progress. Hezbollah continues to strengthen in both man and firepower, which has resulted in the skirmish we are seeing today, as well as the confidence for them to go into Israel. Despite the many warnings I have issued to the Lebanese government, Hezbollah has continued to take lives both inside of Lebanon and inside of Israel. We are currently working with all parties as well as other member nations around the globe, hopefully to reach an immediate ceasefire. As General Secretary of the UN, it's very important that I acknowledge both sides of this conflict as valid. First, it is of the utmost importance that Israel and all of her inhabitants be free from not only terror itself, but the fear of terror from her neighboring nations. The aggression she faces on all sides is not the correct way to settle this ageless, complicated, and controversial feud. Terror should never be used as a political tool, which we strongly condemn here at the UN, and supposed occupation is no grounds to conduct acts of terror against innocent civilians. However, the West Bank and Gaza Strip have become breeding grounds for poverty, terror, violence, and oppressive governing. The hundreds of checkpoints needed to travel inside of Israel for the Palestinian people is just another expression of an oppressive government. These people in Palestine, trapped by organizations like Hamas and the ones who conducted this attack today, Hezbollah, with no excuse for the ineffectiveness in halting rocket attacks from Gaza and the West Bank into Israel, it is important that both sides be heard and acknowledged. Regarding Lebanon, it is important that we note that the current government transformation is incomplete, and as a result, terror and non-government militias are running rampant. Its vulnerability has resulted in instability and intimidation from outside forces, namely Hezbollah in Syria, as we have seen with the events we are discussing today. But again, this is no excuse for the people of Israel to live in fear. What makes this conflict all the more complicated is the inability of both sides to acknowledge the pain and suffering that they have caused to their respective adversaries. The Israelis, with an age-old claim to the land, only see the people of Palestine as enemies of Israel, while Palestinians, represented by Hamas, as well as Hezbollah, view Israel as illegitimate and seek the destruction of the state of Israel. This situation becomes even more complicated, even here at the UN, due to the inability of both states in the region to recognize Israel's legitimacy. As I proposed before, and which has been denied multiple times, a two-state solution seems to be the only acceptable resolution. The ongoing conflict has already claimed the lives of soldiers and civilians alike, and the bloodshed needs to conclude, not just the current battles, but for a peaceful future as well. What makes the solution more difficult is the growth of radicals in both Palestine and other surrounding nations, all hell-bent on destroying Israel, and all pushing out moderates who agree with my proposal of a two-state solution. However, even here at the UN, with moves towards democracy, such as elections, we have seen simultaneous both loss and gains. Mainly our losses with bringing power parties and individuals of movements that oppose our basis of peacemaking. The opportunity for negotiating a two-state solution will not last very long. If we fail to seize it, the people who bear the brunt of this calamity will be faced with further frustration and pain. As a result, other conflicts and problems will become all the more difficult to solve, and extremists around the world will be joyous to see a continuation of pain and suffering, and will certainly anticipate a growth in recruiting and influence. The period ahead will prove to be crucial. Every day brings defeats in the struggle for peace and reasons to give up. However, we must not succumb to these various setbacks. I believe we are on the cusp of peace, and our solutions are mapped out and ready to be implemented. The United Nations and the Middle East are very closely intertwined. The region has shaped this organization like no other and has shown us what we can do with dialogue and diplomacy. I, as well as most of you around the world, yearn for peace. My concerns are far and many, mainly that continuance of hostility in the Middle East. As these attacks continue, Iran and other hostile nations in the Middle East will continue to fund a perpetual war in the name of the collapse of the Israeli state. However, these setbacks and grievances will be resolved in the name of peace. I will continue to work with my peers at the United Nations, as well as the parties involved in current conflict. Peace will be reached by any means, where that result be a two-state solution, a ceasefire, or whatever means we can use to achieve our goal. My name is Kofi Annan. Thank you very much,